Welcome to another episode of the Journey to Hope. We have a very special guest with us today. This is my former boss, one of my better bosses, but don't tell him that, Steve Allin, who was the executive director at the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, whom I followed into that role, and is also the director of operations here at North Bramalea United Church. We're in their studio at the moment. As well, he's the executive director of Journey Thrift. So the man is very busy.
I am, yes.
And we've just been really good friends as well as co-workers. And quite frankly, we've had this great calling together to this amazing mission. And even though now you're not directly on staff or a part of the journey, you are still part of the journey.
That's right. Yeah, it's been about 9 years that we've been together.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, and still we talk.
Yeah, exactly, and support one another. Just care for each other's families and organizations and life, and it's been a blessing really to have that relationship and to continue to have it.
Yeah. So we're grateful to have Steve with us, and today we're going to talk about one of his roles, though we may end up talking about some of the others, and that is his role with the Journey Thrift store and the relationship with Journey Thrift and the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, which sometimes people get confused and they call me wanting to do donations and things. But so why don't you give us a little background? How in the world did Journey Thrift ever get started, and what you thought of at the beginning with it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So when I was the executive director of the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, one of the primary roles is to ensure that the Journey has the financial resources that it needs to function, right?
Yes.
It doesn't just happen.
Yep, and that's what I worry about now.
Exactly. That's number one. We have a manager in place to plan the programming and oversee the execution of the programming and develop partnerships and so on with other organizations. That's the Journey. But ensuring that the funding is there is a key role.
Yes.
And, along with governance and, sure it's well run and legal obligations are met, those sort of things. But the funding is key. And it's a challenge, right? It's a constant challenge. We want to do more. We want to, as the Journey, compensate fairly our team. We want to have greater impact in the community, just bringing hope to people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Hope and transformation in positive ways. And so one of the things is often the funding sources that the Journey does have, there are constraints, there's barriers. So the conditions of a grant have boundaries on it that we have to live within. And so sometimes it's really hard to find dollars to pay for some things like rent or salaries.
Yep.
And so if we can find sources of funding for the Journey Neighbourhood Centre that are unrestricted, right? In other words, it doesn't matter which element of, which cost component of the Journey Neighbourhood Centre has a need. These funds can be allocated to those.
Yep.
And so looking at some of the organizations that do similar things, we're saying, well, there are charities like the Journey Neighbourhood Centre that have organizations, not-for-profit organizations whose purpose is to help provide that funding. And one of the common ways to do that is through a thrift store.
Okay.
And so that was the initial idea. And we toyed around with some other ideas of small businesses that could contribute, but this seemed one that had a track record of success. Of providing, some meaningful revenues, income for the charity, and one worth considering. So that was kind of at the very beginning of the thought.
Yeah, and while Journey Thrift is new, a thrift store at that location isn't, and it kind of almost, I kind of sat back and watched this process and thought, this really just dropped in our laps.
It did, and I'm happy to share that story. So Mission Thrift was the thrift store that occupied the physical space where Journey Thrift is right now, which is in downtown Brampton. And my wife had been volunteering there. So she had retired, I think it was 2014 as a teacher. And this was a local to where we live. And, she enjoyed the thrift store, and she began to volunteer there. They were supporting another charity.
Yep.
And called Bibles for Missions. And so she got to understand how does a thrift store work? How does it operate?
Yeah.
At least how that particular one does.
Yeah.
And so I had expressed an interest. I said, I know the leadership there have been doing it for a long time. They were quite senior, and that there were some ideas about how much longer were they going to continue to operate the store. So I kind of planted the seed, said that, hey, if at some point you think you might not want to continue for any reason, and no pressure, but if that decision comes, I'd like the kind of first opportunity to perhaps take over your lease or talk to your landlord, or some sort of transition to shifting it to a new thrift store that would support the Journey Neighbourhood Centre.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah, so this was 2018, 2019. Those conversations were happening and seeds were being planted, and then COVID hit in the spring of 2020. Things shut down. Pretty much everything shut down, and that included the thrift store. It was being led by people who were particularly vulnerable to COVID, and so there was no appetite in opening anytime soon. And in terms of their leadership, and as it turned out, their lease was expiring in July of 2020. So as July approached, a little further conversation to them saying, hey, are you planning to extend your lease?
Yeah.
What does it look like? They consulted their leadership, their board, and made the decision that they were not going to. So at that point, I engaged the landlord about the idea of us picking it up, and we would create a nonprofit corporation called Journey Thrift. So, that's what happened. There was some conversation about things that they'd leave behind. We purchased some shelving and some supplies and things that the old store no longer needed, and they made it available to us either for free or for low cost.
Yeah.
And we were able to put a team together to upgrade the space and freshen it up, painting, and put up new signs, and bought the supplies. And they'd been using the old kind of cash registers,
mechanical kind of
the old mechanical cash registers. So we bought at least a computer system to handle our sales. Put some temporary leadership in place, which really was my wife, Mary Ann. And then with the ebbs and flows of COVID, opening, closing, partly open, partly, whatever, we operated. We opened in September of 2020, and then again, kind of off and on.
Yes.
To get us started, if you will, and kind of figuring our way to what it is to run a retail outlet, a thrift store.
Very different than running the Journey Neighbourhood Centre.
Yes, and I had zero experience running a thrift store. It was really helpful that my wife, Mary Ann, did have that experience. And, but sometimes, you make a decision, we're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? It means there might be some painful lessons. And it was certainly turbulent times, and we didn't know that, how it would work out.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you trust. I'm a person of faith. We're people of faith. That was part of the equation. this is something that we would pray over and talk to people about, share with, and we receive lots of encouragement and willingness to be a part of it. The support of the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, the support of North Bramham United Church, the support of Ted Brown and Regeneration Thrift.
Yes.
Who has kind of mentored us both in terms of the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, but also Journey Thrift, because they run Regen Thrift.
Yep.
These were people that we shared the vision with, and so it was like, okay, we can make this happen.
Obviously from the Journey Neighborhood side, the money is great, but the Journey thrift store is far more than that in terms of benefits, and that there's more to it than just raising money for Journey Neighborhood Centre.
Yeah, there's so much to it. There's a bottom line factor, and that was a primary driver to the idea of Journey Thrift. But one of the beautiful things is the community impact that Journey Thrift itself has.
Yes.
We have a very diverse set of volunteers, people who are interested in supporting their community directly or through the Journey Neighbourhood Centre. That there's intrinsic value in that, feeling a sense of contribution, but also enjoying being with one another, doing something constructive together, serving for a purpose beyond themselves.
Yes.
The Journey Thrift is intentionally inclusive.
Yep.
So we have lots of people who have various health conditions and challenges and struggles. And we've really worked hard to find, to make it a place where they're comfortable, where they can contribute, they can engage with the community. So people have been referred to us from various health programs and counseling programs. We have one right now with the Elizabeth Fry Society. And they help to place people who have had unfortunate experiences with the law.
Yes.
And so there's some people coming out of under their programming that have volunteered with the Journey, and they've been a delight. They've been a joy, and they'll come and do community service hours, but often they'll stay beyond that.
Yeah.
Because they love the experience of Journey Thrift. They like to contribute. And for some, it's there's the added value of developing some skills. Okay, so they can put on a resume that they've had experience in retail or, leadership in some cases, because there are opportunities to lead. We've also have 2 paid positions. So we have 2 part-time managers, and so the store is led each day through them, and so there is some employment opportunity as well in a small way. So a whole host of benefits that have construed to being a part of it, whether as a volunteer, and frankly, the Journey. You mentioned earlier, I can't remember if it was on the air or off, but that you get calls and saying, "Well, can we make some donations?" Well, guess what? I've got a place. Where you can donate your household items or furniture or whatever. Instead of you trying to find a family that can happen to use at that moment a chest of drawers or a bed or a clothing, it can come to the store. And it's available to the community at low cost. And that's the other thing, it benefits the community, particularly low-income families, because the items are good repair. That's part of the deal, right? We make sure that they're in good repair, and they're available at a very, very reasonable cost.
Well, and there have been times, unfortunately, in our neighborhood where the Journey neighborhood, we've had, I think I've counted 6 fires over the years. And there's been more than one occasion where we've sent a family to Journey Thrift and you've just given them the clothes and the stuff that they needed because of their immediate loss at that time. So you become an extension of our ministry.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one in particular where the fire. It was 3-generation family, 3 people,
Yeah.
3 generations, and they had lost everything.
Yeah.
They lost absolutely everything in their apartment, and we basically opened the doors at a time that was suitable for them. Right,
Yep.
they were comfortable to come in,
Yeah.
and basically said, "Whatever we have is yours."
Yeah.
And we'll help you get it to your place or wherever you need to
Yeah.
store it or take
Yeah.
it. It's yours. This is
Yeah.
one thing that you don't need to worry about.
Yeah.
And I could, because when those things happen, there's a lot to, you got just the devastation personally
Yeah.
of the experience, dealing with insurance, the landlord, what have you. It's highly stressful for
Yeah.
people. If we can remove some of those barriers and make
Yeah.
things a little bit easier for them, we'll do that. So we've done that kind of thing on more than one occasion. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question. We haven't discussed it all. I'm
Sure.
going to put you on the spot now. From a personal standpoint, and that, how has this impacted you?
Yeah, in a whole host of ways. There's so many kind of fits and starts, and especially with COVID, there's, that was experienced in a lot of ways, trying to find people who had the skills and gifts to run the store. My daughter was a manager for a while, and until health conditions meant that she wasn't able to continue.
Yep.
My wife similarly had a heavy involvement, but also, some health matters, and even just the load of doing it all. So
Yep.
I was involved, my wife was involved, my daughter, so it was a lot.
It's a family business.
It was definitely, we weren't all the people, but
Yep.
we were playing key roles.
Yeah.
And so it was both fun in the sense of, we enjoyed the dynamic of working together in many ways and talking about it. And we could, it was easy to kind of sit around the dinner table and talk, okay, well, here's some of the things we need to do. And then together finding, Christina and Nick, who are our store managers, that was great. And, kind of helping them to move along. And deciding that I could figure this out, that I could, from a senior leadership role, could make this work.
Yeah.
Right. Without a retail background, without firsthand knowledge, but trusting that my own experience, I have a long history of leadership, whether it's through the Journey or my corporate work before that, my work here at the church. So trusting that that would see me through. So definitely stressful at times, having to make some hard decisions.
Yep.
But believing that, through it all, that it's the right thing to do, and a sense of I think of making a difference. I mean, part of my life mission is I want to make life better for other people.
Yes.
Right. I want people to know that they are loved and cared for, that they're not alone, that they're not on their own, and whether that's through other people or their faith or what have you. And I can be a small part of that. Yeah. And so that's gratifying, and that's fulfilling in itself.
It seems to me that since you left the corporate world, God has kind of given you this gift of service and mission.
Yeah, that was part of the decision. So that's been 9 years. Yeah. Almost to the day, actually, 9 years that I decided that I left corporate world after 34 years. Right. Yeah. So lots of experience there, and as you know, I was involved in the Journey and the church long before that.
You were one of the team.
Yeah, so I was involved. My family was involved, right? My wife had the first after-school program.
Loved her. The kids loved her.
So it's been part of my makeup, my DNA, my heart all along. But the decision to move out of the corporate world was fueled in part by a desire to have a greater impact, to use my skills more fully towards helping my community, the people of Brampton in particular,
Yeah.
families that struggle.
Yep. I stepped into the manager position, of course, and had no management experience, at least not of a community center. And it was great having you as a boss because you brought a whole other level of leadership and, quite frankly, a partnership.
Yeah.
Because, we both sense this desire, this deep need to serve people and serve the community and do what God would ask of us at that time.
Yeah, and the way that we did it was one of through conversation. We understood our roles, but there weren't hard boundaries. They were soft boundaries.
I'm sure I was a pretty bad employee.
No, you weren't. They were a great employee. But the edges were soft because we knew, okay, I need to step in, Steve, and help find a resource because Kevin hasn't been able to find that resource. Okay. How can I do that? Oh, I've got these connections through the church or my family or friends or what have you.
Exactly.
Or vice versa. Like, I'm going to be away. Steve too deserves some time off or whatever. So Kevin would,
oh dear me,
would step in and make a presentation to a potential donor group.
Yeah.
That's great. So that was the way we worked.
Yeah.
And those both. So if I think of myself as stepping, filling some manager roles or, I like to barbecue. So I'll come over and run the barbecue. That's a great way for me to meet the people of the community.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of visibility. I don't need to be visible as part of the journey, but I think it enhances that many people in the community knew me and still know me.
Yeah.
Get a taste for some of what you're doing and your staff.
Yeah.
Really, really helpful insights. And then for you to see some of the things that I'm doing. Okay, I've got a presentation to the United Way or the Rotary Club or the what have you. Those are helpful and in some ways prepared you for being the executive director.
Yeah.
Collaborating on grant writing. We did a lot of that together.
Yes.
A lot of that together.
Yeah.
Really helpful to some of the insights.
I'll be chasing you down, by the way, when I do this next
I'm sure there's
grant.
more. Yeah. But again, those are opportunities to grow and to produce a better product as well, better grant submission. So that kind of collaborative work, but still understanding our core roles.
Yes.
That's the way I've always found to be, I think, the most effective way to lead, to do our jobs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If there's anything we could emphasize here, it's working together. Yeah. It's collaboration, whether it's at this level, Journey Thrift, Journey Neighbourhood Centre, or this level as comrades, friends, boss, and rebellious employee. But we achieve much greater things when we do things together. And if there's a message that we could get across, it'd be, multiple ones. Go to Journey Thrift. They got some great stuff there. Donate to Journey Thrift because that's what they sell, the great stuff. Become a part of our ecosystem of serving the community. There are great opportunities to do that. And find a place for mission, because when you serve, the fulfillment is just awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to have those relationships.
Yeah. So thank you, Steve Allin, former executive director of the Journey Neighbourhood Centre, but good friend and a good partner in this mission together.
Yeah, it's been a delight today and always to collaborate with Kevin and with the Journey Neighbourhood Centre itself. Yeah. It's been a blessing, truly.
Yeah. And probably we should note, thank you for stepping in at the very last second because my previous person canceled. So you just arrived, and I appreciate your graciousness and willingness to just, I'll do it.
Well, I like the opportunity to talk about both Journey Thrift and the Journey Neighbourhood Centre.
Yes.
The more we can share what those organizations are about, the better.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you for sticking it out to the end of this video. Goodbye.